Yes, I'm talking about the BBC situation, if that's what you'd like to do. Is that what you'd like? Yes. Well, in the case of the BBC, of course, all this story would have been in the public domain had the BBC not allowed themselves to be bullied by the powers that be, who were terrified of the story coming out. Mark Daly and his team, which included Kathy Long and Ian McDougall from Panorama, spent 6 weeks and take a look at all the paperwork, all the background, many interviews. They have a document confirming that 2 programmes were commissioned, one for BBC Television Scotland, one for BBC Radio Scotland. I have that document. After Daly and the rest were threatened on the 10th of June with their jobs if they conducted not only Holly's case but other cases related to paedophilia, nothing more was heard from him. I kept in touch with him. I gave him every opportunity to come forward if there had been any misunderstanding or anything at all to make further explanation. He failed to do so and only came out of the woodwork when the story broke after I'd been arrested and millions of people all over the world became involved in the story, and so BBC were then under pressure. Mark Daly then said that it's down to him, it was his decision alone not to go ahead with the story. I think it's a complete nonsense, and I've also had some reliable information, which I hope is correct, is that the story, having got so far as it did with the BBC, could not have been pulled from a mere reporter, which is what Mark Daly had. It had to be pulled at least editorial level.
Something from the top.
Absolutely.
And is he revealing? Is obviously failing to reveal who might be put in pressure?
Yes, I think he's under pressure to take this on his own bat, otherwise there'd be more trouble, you know.
Yeah.
So I've no doubt that this conspiracy and this pressure on people on the BBC to keep their mouths shut, I say, not over Holly's case, not only just for Holly's case, but other cases of paedophilia, which Mark and his team told me about recurring in Scotland. It's all been, there's all this enormous pressure to hush it up, because the can of worms, once opened, can't put the lid back on again. And that's how bad it is.
Sure. Anything else you'd like to say?
There's an awful lot I'd like to say, but there won't be time to say it because I'm going to have my lunch in a minute. Well, no, that sounds terribly flippant. But you know, there's so much the case. There's so other things going on at the moment. One thing I would say is that Mark Daly was threatened with the sack of the team. One very good man was sacked over the Holly Gregg case,
right, and
his name is John Smithies, and he's the press officer with the Down Syndrome Association, not in Scotland, but alarmingly enough down here in England at their head office in Teddington.
So
he was a great supporter of us. He supported our cause. He knew it was important because the Down syndrome knew about the number of abuses of people with Down syndrome and with other learning difficulties through sexual predators, and that the authorities in many ways were trying to cover up for it, and they give us full backing for this until, of course, in October, obviously the Down Syndrome Association, their chief executive, Carol Boyes, came under pressure, and John Smithies rang me one day to tell me that he'd been called to an interview because of the Holly Gregg story. He asked me if any legal action had been taken against me at the time for revealing the names of all the people in the ring, and I said no one at all has even threatened me in any way at all, and the stuff I put is in the public domain anyway. It seems that John had been putting things about in emails within the Down Syndrome Association, not outside but within it, and he was very worried about being called to an interview. He spoke he was going to be interviewed on the Monday following that Thursday. On Tuesday I rang John up, and he told me he'd been sacked by Carol Boyes. The reason for this sacking that she gave was that it risked Down Syndrome Association having legal action taken against them. The Down Syndrome Association had given us 100% backing on the Holly Gregg case. Carol Boyes I accused of being got at. She refused to answer my emails, wouldn't take my calls, and eventually I did get one message that told me more or less to mind my own business, and she wasn't going to discuss a situation within the Down Syndrome Association with the likes of me. However, there's a very good gentleman here today called Grenville Green who is pursuing this. He's a lifelong member of the Down Syndrome Association, and he is making steps to call for an extraordinary general meeting in which the dismissal of Carol Boyes will be the prime objective. So we'll see.
Have you received any threats, Mr. Green?
No, I've never received any personal threats. Not in this case. I've received plenty of death threats before, but not over this one, curiously enough. But they'll probably come at some point. It may happen.
So where are we at with the
Well, we're attacking it in many ways at the moment. We're obviously trying to put political pressure on. Obviously, it's still a possibility I may be able to stand in Aberdeen South, which will bring the story invariably into the public domain. And of course, that was why I was arrested and banned from Aberdeen, to stop me doing that. But there are lots of people who are trying to help in a way in that area anyway. But we want to bring it as a national. It's a national case. It's not something that the other members of Parliament can actually say, oh, this is just a little local minor difficulty in Aberdeen. It's a national story.
Do you think it's absolutely huge?
I think it's the tip of the iceberg. Obviously, I can only talk about the Holly Gregg case. I can't speak conclusively about anything else, but I have been led to believe that there are connections with all sorts of other dreadful cases in which there's been all kinds of attempts to hush things up. The Dunblane one was exactly one that springs to mind immediately, but obviously that's not my case, but I've been told that there are connections.
And what politicians do you think all this can link to?
Politicians, I don't know. The only politician who can be definitely linked to, well, the politicians can be definitely linked to are the Lord Advocate of Scotland, Elisha Angelini, who we can conclusively prove through written documents has lied about her role in the case, and also we can show that the leading members of the Scottish National Party who are governing Scotland at the moment, Alex Salmond, the First Minister, and Kenny McCaskill, the Justice Minister, are heavily involved in this case. They've been told a long time ago, and we've presented the documents to show that the Lord Advocate in their government, a member of their government, had been lying over this particular case. And I suggested back in the summer the only possibility was actually to dismiss the Lord Advocate and call for a public independent inquiry into the case.
Why do you think Alex Salmond is linked?
Well, Alex Salmond is linked because he knows about it and has done nothing about it. He knows the Lord Advocate has lied, and lied repeatedly over this terribly serious case. I can only assume, only on the basis of what people have told me, again, it's pure speculation, but when the Holly Gregg case first came up, it coincided with the problem with the Lockerbie case, the El Magrabi case. And my understanding from people who are good enough to give me hopefully accurate inside information was that he saw he had two major scandals on his hands at the same time. One he could do very little about because of all the massive international pressure. The other one that just consisted of two ladies living in Shropshire, one with Down syndrome and some chap in Cheshire who nobody ever heard of. Why should he worry about that? So not to get involved in that case. He thought he could suppress it. But
so you don't think he's a paedophile?
No, I've nothing to support that. I've nothing to support that. He is certainly actively, not just turning a blind eye, but actively supporting sex crime against children in Scotland. That is a fact.
How is he supporting it?
Why he's supporting it by preventing the stories from coming out. By supporting his Lord Advocate, he is in fact supporting the continuation of crimes against children in Scotland. Obviously all this could be brought to a head if it came into the public domain and an inquiry was open, but he will not do that. He's also supporting a cover-up for a murder as well, I should add. That's another suit. Anne's brother. Anne's brother, yes, Anne's brother, who was murdered on the 17th of November 1997 on a little side road just outside Aberdeen. Even our opponents, the solicitors acting for the sheriff, whose name I can't give, has on a public document has referred to it as a murder. Not an alleged murder, not a murder with inverted commas around it, but as a murder. And there's little doubt on the evidence that we have and the motive and everything else that a full public inquiry should be called into the murder of Robert David Gregg, or Roy Gregg as he was known. It is already an inquiry, has been opened up with the Chief Constable of another police force, Lothian and Borders, David Strang, and copies of the documentation of the letter have been sent to the Prime Minister, to David Cameron and to Alex Salmond. The Prime Minister's office has acknowledged this already.
And how can things be brought forward, or how can things change?
That's a tough one, because so many people are involved in these, not only this case but other cases as well, and obviously a great deal great number of people in very, very high positions are going to be in real trouble over this. So every effort will be due to suppress it. It depends, it's very much in the hands of the people of this country to stand up about this case, to be made aware of it. And it's very difficult when the press are effectively controlled as well. But people do have to realise these terrible things are going on, and we do not live in a civilised democracy. We've really got to take steps ourselves. Many demonstrations have taken place already, 4 of them in Scotland, none of which were even reported in the press there, and obviously we just hope that other people will come forward and do their very best. They need to pursue their MPs. Election coming up, they've got to make this situation, not just Holly's case, but all the issues to do with the abuse of children as a major issue, because if we can't protect our children, what on earth are all the other issues in comparison to that?
Thanks, Robert.
Thank you. Thank you very much.